On July 18th, I boarded a plane in Raleigh, North Carolina, that would eventually get me to the beautiful and extremely hot city of Phoenix, Arizona. With only one night left in the Americas, I met 30 girls feeling the same thing that I was: excitement and nervousness. After a couple of icebreakers and tons of talking, we grabbed a few hours of sleep before boarding a plane to Newark International Airport, and from there, London, England. Upon arriving in England, we were all exhausted. 10 hours of watching movies on the plane and only a few hours of sleep the night before led most of us to fall asleep in the airport waiting for the bus to come. Then once again falling asleep on the bus for the hour-long ride out of London to the Gilwell Scouting Centre. There, we spent the next week as participants in the Oxford Youth Leadership Program, squeezing and bonding time in every spare second. These spare seconds included taking a day to the majestic city of Oxford, and even doing a scavenger hunt through the streets of some of the most amazing architecture I have ever seen. This scavenger hunt and tour through the college allowed us to see many famous sites, including a few places from Hogwarts. After a week in the Oxford Youth Program, we embarked on the main part of our journey, London. After dropping off all our luggage at the hotel, we hopped on the tube and headed for lunch in Covent Gardens, the same place that Eliza first met Professor Higgins in My Fair Lady. After hopping back on the tube, we arrived in a neighborhood that is famous for two reasons. First, Jude Law lives there. And second, Pax Lodge, one of the Girl Scouts World Centers, was just a few blocks away. At Pax Lodge, we were all fortunate enough to participate in a pinning ceremony, where all visitors are given a special pin that is only received if you personally go to Pax Lodge. That night, we got to visit one of London's most well-known modern-day attractions, the London Eye. Although it's a long wait, this 30-minute ride was definitely worth it. Once you reached the top, you could see everything that London had to offer. The next morning, we had the opportunity to visit the world-famous Victoria and Albert Museum. Not only did we get to see some of the crown jewels, but we also got to see the Grace Kelly fashion exhibit that was currently there. Although we were eventually forced to leave the museum, we did get to go to Harrods later that day, where supposedly anything can be bought. Based on the size of the store, I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. That day, we also took a quick tour of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, a replica of the theater where all of Shakespeare's plays were performed. We even got to see the actors practicing for a play that was premiered. The next day was one of the most memorable days of my life. Not only did we get to go on a fantastic walking tour in London, but we also got to attend the changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Later in the week, we revisited Buckingham to view the changing of the guards like all the other tourists in London. But that first time we went, we were welcomed as Girl Scouts and allowed to stand inside the gates for the changing of the guards. The Queen had even been inside the palace getting ready for her garden party the next day, which we got to see many dignitaries arriving for. My favorite part was when two of the guards, whose official duty I'm not quite sure of, but I know they were holding flags and marching around inside like they were checking the perimeter. At one point, they marched directly up to us and stood there. Now, if you were on the outside of the gates, you saw two stone-faced guards staring at a large group of girls. However, for those of us on the inside, we saw two stone-faced guards cracking jokes with us and debating with us just how many states the United States had. Thousands of people try every day to make these famous guards smile, and here we were listening to them tell jokes about, quote, the giant bear on my head. The next morning, we hopped on a bus and, after a quick stop at St. Paul's Cathedral, drove all the way to Windsor Castle, the Queen's other home. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to take pictures inside the buildings,
So you'll have to take my word for it when I say that I saw the most amazing and breathtaking rooms I have ever seen in my entire life. Once we got back to London that afternoon, we were treated to high tea in the National Cafe, a truly English tradition. Our last day in London, we took a hike uphill to the Royal Observatory at Greenwich. Outside of the amazing view, this is also the location of the Prime Meridian, the line that sets all time zones and is the division between the eastern and western hemispheres. We also spent the afternoon at the Tower of London, learning all about its gruesome and scary history. Unfortunately, after only 2 hours of sleep and over 15 total hours in a plane, I arrived back in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was forced to say goodbye to these amazing friends that I had started to consider my sisters. I still talk to everyone every chance I get, and will never forget this amazing experience and the people I shared it with, and hope that one day you too will know this same feeling.